Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins. Today, I'm joined by somebody who's kind of returning to a discussion that we kicked off many moons ago with the wonderful, talented Carol Cronin. Carol was actually part of our written interview series, which ended up being over 400 published articles with creatives and leaders and thinkers over a number of years. And that's where we got the foundation for this show, the Global Discussion, where we're talking to creatives, leaders, and thinkers, just like Carol. So, Carol, it's wonderful to have you here on the show. But rather than me tell everybody about you, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your world. We can see some wonderful artwork behind you already for people watching this episode rather than just listening to it. But tell us about the world that you're involved in. Tell us all about the gallery, the art, and everything in between. So over to you, Carol.
I'll do my best. So yes, I'm Carol Cronin. It's lovely to be here. I suppose I'm primarily a painter. I'm a painter that I became very interested in seascapes. I spent a long time abroad. I'm from Ireland, but I traveled abroad. I spent 10 years in Amsterdam. I painted very abstract work. 20 years ago, I came back to Ireland and it changed everything for me. And I totally I was blown away by what I saw back here with adult eyes in comparison to being young, growing up, seeing this landscape. Suddenly it meant everything to me. I stopped what I was doing. I quite literally took a rucksack. I moved from Amsterdam onto the Great Blasket Island, which was, well, it still is. It's an uninhabited island off the southwest coast of Ireland. And I started again. I stopped painting. I picked up a pencil. I started drawing the sea. I knew that was my subject and that's what I was supposed to be painting. So that's really where it starts for me. That's point zero. From there, from the drawings, I started showing in galleries, in local galleries here in Dingle. It's in Kerry in Ireland. And that was lovely. I was in the studio and everything, painting away, but it lacked something for me. When I started getting calls saying, you know, another painting is sold, your check is at the gallery, I realized, okay, this isn't it either. There has to be something else involved here. So that's when I started my own gallery. So that's why when Simon was introducing me, he introduced me, you know, and spoke about a gallery. And to me, it's they're all things that combine into one whole I don't know what you call it, one whole life. You know, it's the painting and the meeting the people. That was the very important thing that was missing. The fact that I wasn't meeting the people who liked my work. I wasn't meeting the people that I didn't hear what people thought about my work. I'm a seascape painter that also I have branched out into my own gallery. And I started my gallery maybe 15 years ago in order that I would get to meet the people who, you know, I wanted to meet the people who connected with my work, and that has fed back into the work, and it's been an amazing experience, that interaction between me and the people who are looking at my work, and it's just an amazing place to live as well, I have to say.
Well, thank you, Carol, for giving us that background context. And I want to ask you something that you mentioned is you did a little bit of travel. You ended up in Amsterdam. Art was very much part of that. But then to come back from, I suppose, when I think of Amsterdam, it's a very multicultural melting pot of creative things going on. You know, it's a great city for people who have been there and experienced it. But then the Blasket Islands is a very different backdrop, isn't it? It's completely different. It's a beautiful part of the world, however. But how did you find that transition? Was that the perfect place for you at that moment in time? Is that where everything started to come together, or did you have that already as part of the thought process?
It was a total, utterly a shock to me. I had no intention of ever coming back to Ireland to live. It wasn't on the cards at all. So for me, it was a very strange experience to know as soon as I hit the Blasket Islands that that's where I was going to be, because I was very happy in Amsterdam. I had absolutely no wish to move back, but I'm so glad that it happened. You know, I'm so incredibly glad, because at the time I thought I was happy until I put my foot on that island, and for some reason it was just like, no, this is it, this is it. But yes, it's a very different place, but we all have our own interior lives. You know, what's going on inside our mind is much bigger than, you know, what we can see at any one time. So I brought that all with me. And I mean, Amsterdam is an incredible place. I love the city and it is completely different. But somehow the transition wasn't that much, because I suppose as a painter, as an artist, you're living inside in your mind's eye a lot. I don't want to say a lot more than anybody else, because everybody is creative, but I suppose for me, it's the interior life of what I'm doing visually is the interesting thing. So when I went to the island, I remembered that my mind, it was just an explosion of all of the things of how would I do it? How would I paint it? And that's why I had to go back to step one and to forget about everything else, because I knew I didn't have the skill. You know, I had been painting abstract paintings without actually, you know, they were no good. They just weren't good. I didn't know it at the time. Every painter I knew was doing the same thing. We'd paint and they'd pile up behind us in the studio, and there was never any expectation to be understood or whatever, you know. So I wasn't expecting a connection with people, but when I saw the sea, and it touched me in such a way that I had never experienced before. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do, but I knew if I wanted to do it properly, I would have to go right back to the start. So it was a year of just drawing, no painting. And then it was painting with no color. So it was such a huge subject with so many different aspects that I had to pare it back in order to build it up. And that's why when I see my paintings, I'm just, you know, I'm very, very proud. I just love the fact that I did that it's not a secondary painting. It's from the sea to me to the canvas. There's nothing else in between. There's no photograph. There's no, I'm not copying from a drawing. I'm not using hand-eye coordination where I'm looking at something and trying to paint. It's literally, it's my absorption of my experience at the sea, filtering it through me and then trying to put that back on canvas. And I'll never get it right. It's not possible. It's an impossible thing to try and do, but I can always get it better, you know, and that's what keeps me going. And that's what keeps me excited about doing this. And sometimes people will say, you know, don't you get tired of painting the sea? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been, you know, doing this section and it's still like the infinite universe of, you know, I don't even want to look over there because I'm just not even good at this part. So I suppose the short answer is no, I'll never get sick of painting the sea, as far as I know.
I love that. And it's great when you talk about that, because in today's digital AI infused busy world, for somebody that's not even looking at a reference, it's just coming from, well, it's coming from somewhere. It's coming from your love of that. And that passion is coming out through the onto the canvas, through the materials. And it's interesting when you say I'll never get it right, because for people that haven't seen some of your work, they can get a glimpse at carolcronin.com, and I'd encourage everybody to go and have a look, because they are truly moving. They're wonderful pieces. And, you know, I've been a fan for a long time, and I think the way that you capture it is incredibly talented, Carol. And I know that you are humble as an artist, but it brings me on to something I wanted to talk about as well, because once things start to get noticed in the art world, and, you know, you move from that going back to zero and starting again, and then things start to build, don't they? I really want to maybe explore that a little bit, because your work today has been featured on, you know, the Discovery Channel. People will know that. RTE, the national state broadcaster in Ireland, have featured you. You hang in various institutions. You've had work commissioned, you know, whether it's been through the Arts Heritage or other organizations. But how does it start to grow from there? Because you don't just go back to zero and then all of a sudden it magically appears. I'm assuming it's over many years. And how does that conversation that you brought up earlier about talking to people about your art and being engaged with people, how much of that does that fall into your process?
I was never, how do I start this? I think the most important thing in all of that, in the answer to the question, the most important thing in all of that is that I concentrated on the work And any time that my work got noticed, or that it was because that somebody else had seen it, or somebody was talking about it. I've never been a networking person. In the sense, I shouldn't say that. I love networks of people, and I love meeting people, and I love people that I know meeting people that I know, and them liking each other. Fantastic. However, I've never been a schmoozer, in the sense that I don't do very well at those, gatherings where the purpose is to network, like the launches and the art scene and all of that. So I'm really not a part of that. And that's the honest truth. I don't go to things, really. What I do is I concentrate on work. And I don't really have that huge amount of time to do that anyway, even if I did want to do, but I have the gallery, and people would come into the gallery. And I have to say that even though I do have work hanging in different collections and stuff, the vast majority of my work is owned by private people, families, just people who love the work, that connect to it. And it's an array of people that is mind-blowing. That I mean, I've been educated in the time that I've had the gallery to just how much art means to people. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. You'd go to a museum, you'd go to an art exhibition opening, and it's a pre-filtered crowd that's in there. When you have a small gallery in a small town, you have people who wander in because they're on holidays and it's raining, and you have people that come in because maybe their kid is is interested, but they would never, ever, ever step over the threshold of a gallery themselves. If you ask them, do you know anything about art? They'd say, oh, geez, no, not a thing. And yet that same person will come in, and I don't understand it. I'll have somebody who will tell me that they've never been in a gallery before, and they'll actually get moved to the point that they're in tears, which to me, I just didn't know that would happen. I mean, I'm even thinking about it now, and it's like, and that has happened over and over and over again. I've had very young people coming into me. I had a young guy who he worked for a while washing dishes in a local restaurant, and he used to pass by the window and he'd see this painting, and these are big paintings, they're big paintings, but he used to see these paintings, and he arrived in one day with a ball of money, saying, I want to buy this painting. And I remember wrapping it and kind of thinking, gosh, and I said, you're the youngest person to ever buy an original, like, it's incredible. He's only 21, 22. And he said that he had gone down to the supermarket. He had bought a scratch card. He always loved my paintings, but he had bought this scratch card at lunchtime, scratched 3 stars. He had been on the national television, the spin the wheel kind of lottery thing. And he won €45,000. And he thought to himself, what do I want most? And what he wanted most at the age of 21 was one of my paintings. And it absolutely blew me away. And I kind of thought, we pass each other on the street, and we see people in the world, and you have no idea what's going on inside their head. You have no idea what their likes are, their dislikes are. And for me, for a 21-year-old, that was somebody that I wasn't expecting as a person to come in and buy a painting, And over the years, I've been so amazed. I'll write it down sometimes because I'm so amazed at who buys the paintings, or who not even buys the paintings, but who connects to the paintings, who've been coming in. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and like you were saying, that some people don't step over the threshold of a gallery. They don't maybe have art in their life. Then when you pass something every day and you see it and it starts to become meaningful for it, and then luckily that young gentleman seemed to be in a position where he could go and buy the thing that he desired the most. It's such a wonderful story, and such a great thing for you to share. So thank you for doing that. And I know that you were mentioning that the glitz and glamour and the pre-filled rooms of people to buy art, and you go and I know you've done that. I know you've exhibited in New York. I know the Met's Chelsea and places like that. And I know you've had, in the Netherlands, the National Archives and people like that have commissioned your work. But can I ask you about your work today? So when you're creating a piece today, it'll take as long as it takes? Are you predominantly working on commissions today? Are you painting what you love and like? What's the process like today now as a gallery owner, as somebody who, is recognized, is successful as an artist?
Well, I think it's it's always changing. So I have, and the most important thing is that I have enough time to paint. So it is changing. I have somebody in the gallery for a couple of days a week so that I get more, because the gallery was getting more busy, and it was getting impossible for me to paint. And that's, after all, what I want to do. So, and that's the whole point of it all. So, so I came back. I maintained more days in the studio, but it has changed in a way, and I like it because I've moved with whatever is happening. I'm putting one foot in front of the other as it goes along. I never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So when it comes to these kind of large scale paintings, sometimes I'll have people who come to me before for example, before they've built their house. The first time this happened, it was so strange for me that they came to me, they had their plans for their house, and in the architect's drawings, they had actually Carol Cronin painting written in. And this was before they had ever contacted me to say that they were thinking of having a painting, and that's huge. That's an amazing thing to feel that you're part of somebody's life, even though you've never met them, you haven't met them yet, So I'll start with that family. In that case, they wanted quite a super large painting. So that takes over the studio a little bit for a while. So I have to juggle that. So I'll generally be painting on 4 or 5 paintings at any one time, because that's a combination of it's better not to spend all your time the way I paint, to spend all my time on one painting, because then I start making bad decisions. You can't really see what you're looking at anymore. After about 4 hours, it starts getting a bit. So I'll always have to have the discipline to put that away and take another painting up. It's also about the layers drawing. But so I've painted 4 or 5 at any one time. The way it's happened with sales in the gallery is there'll always be 1 or 2 or 3 paintings that are available that people can come in and it's for sale on the wall. But it's definitely, I've never had very many paintings available at any one time. That's the basics. But I do have a waiting list. I don't do commissions. I don't like hybrid paintings. I don't like somebody coming into me and saying, can you paint this part of that scene and there, and it's just like, no, because the entire time I'm hoping that I'm painting what they have in their head. So with a commission, I've always found that even if somebody says, no, I don't have any picture in my head of that particular scene, they do. And they don't realize it until they see yours and they say, well, that's not what I had in my head. So instead, what I do is the only way I've been able to work is, and I love painting large scale pieces, is to work with somebody and say, yeah, okay, that size painting, fine, let's do it. But if at the end of it, people will put down a deposit, and if at the end of that time they see the painting and for any reason at all they say it's not for me, they get their deposit straight back, because I'm always running at a very low stock, if you know what I mean. So I know I'll sell it, I know it'll be fine, and I never ever want somebody to have a painting of mine hanging in their home that they don't want or that they don't like. So it works for both of us. There's no pressure on them. There's no pressure on me.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that has a Carol Cronin piece of art that they don't love. Never mind, I don't think that's possible. And when you talk about a large canvas, just for people who are with us listening to this episode, what sort of size are you talking about? What's a large canvas that you would paint, Carol, typically?
One that's just gone is one that was 10 foot across and 6 foot high. And that's at the limit of my studio. It's just that had to be built here, and then it's a truck to take it away. But and I'm shocked, because I realized that I need to get a bigger boat, as they say on Jaws. I need to get a bigger studio, because I don't want the studio to be restricting the size of the work, and just to stand in front of a painting like that and to be getting up and down ladders to paint, and then walking back and looking at it in the real, it's fabulous experience to get the chance to do stuff like that, So yeah, but
your art. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there, but your art and your paintings, they have an ability to stop you in your tracks anyway, because there's something. Maybe I'm not going to use the right words here, but there's something very powerful and raw about them and beautiful about them. And to see them on such a large scale is truly magnificent. But go on, Carol, you're going to make a point there.
Oh no, I've totally forgotten now what I was going to say, but it doesn't matter. I thank you for that. That's what I say. I suppose just on the thing with scale is that it's the nature of it. It's the
Mm.
nature of the sea that you just want more and more and more, and you want it to be deeper and deeper and deeper, you know. And thank you for that about the what you mentioned there about the power. There was it was really strange, like just those small little snippets of being in the gallery with people. Like there was one woman, I'll never forget it. A little old lady came in one day, and I was doing something, administrating, sitting at the desk, and she came through the gallery, and I could almost, she was stomping around the gallery, and she came back up to me and she goes, "Jesus, they're all wild seas, and they're all, you must be a very angry person." And I looked at her and I said, "God, no, you know, really, you couldn't be further from the truth. You know, I mean, I'm not angry at all. Like, it's not about that. It's not about anger." And I think the phone rang or whatever. I got distracted, and I said, "But honest to God, there's no anger in these paintings." And whatever happened that I got distracted, I thought she had left. So I continued on and I was doing whatever. And the next thing she came up and she said, "I'm so sorry." She said, "I've just gone around again." And she said, "It's just the power of it all." And she got really kind of upset. And she said, "They're not angry at all. They're beautiful." Like this. And
They
I
are,
mean,
yeah. They're stunning. Absolutely stunning.
to hear that though, and to
Yeah.
for her to come back and apologize, and she apologized to me for saying that they were angry, you know, like there are all these little things, these little interactions between people that art can inspire, which is just something that I didn't know when it was a case of just painting, dropping it off at the gallery, being called, "Your check is here, here's your check, there you go." And I'll never forget that feeling of putting up a blank canvas onto the easel and thinking, what is it about this that's missing? You know, I should be really thrilled that my paintings are selling. That's it, isn't it? But it's nice to be able to listen to yourself and say, okay, hold on, there's something. What is it that's missing? You know?
Yeah, well, look, I think the fact that your stock's always running low is probably a good sign, Carol.
Yeah,
Um, can I
exactly.
ask you I just want to dive in real quick, just about your technique to
Mm.
painting. So, fine glazing, different pigments, layers, the colors that you deploy. Could you maybe expand that for our creative audience? Just tell us a little bit about your process, your technique.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I went back to I realized I didn't really know very much about technique, even though I went to college and everything. I didn't remember it. It's not the college's fault; it's my fault. So I went back, and there was an incredible book that I really should have um, shares in, and it's the Ralph. Oh my God, Ralph Myers book, Handbook of Materials and Techniques. Ralph Myers, Handbook of Material and Techniques. It's a fabulous book. It is absolutely brilliant, and you can get it for £5 secondhand on Amazon. If you're an artist out there and you don't want to be going paying a huge amount for it, but it's a fantastic book in that it's a collection of every single technique for everything from encaustic soda to etching to painting. But he goes down through in detail. He's collected all of the detail of all of the old masters and everybody that's worked since. And it was literally trawling through that book. I was making my own rabbit skin glue for a while, but I trawled through it and I went through everything until I realized what worked for me. And what worked for me was the technique that was building up an underpainting with so I'd start with an underpainting for most of the paintings with raw sienna and burnt umber, and and I'd build it up like that, and then start layering in the colors on top. And so I'm not really somebody who sits down and mixes up their color first. Like it'll just be I'll do layers of colors, and that's where the color comes from.
And the draw to the art, Carol, you mentioned earlier that getting somebody else into the gallery helps you build that time in so you can actually do what
Yeah.
you love. Is there a particular time of day or week where you paint? Do you have to start at a certain time? Is it just as the mood takes you? How does that routine work for you?
That's it. I'm finding it a real struggle a real struggle. Like time management is really something that I have to put a lot of time into. It's it's difficult because there are so many things. I mean, I feel guilty about not being in the gallery, because I know that that's a nice experience as well for people coming in. I know that it's nice if I'm there to be able to explain the work to them or whatever. Uh, I'm kind of sorry that I'm losing the days there, but in the studio, there's also other things, there's shipping of paintings because they do go all over the world. There's there are all kinds of small administration things. So for me, it's if on my free days, I try and get up as early as I can and start painting as fast as I can and then get into that zone and, leave things to the afternoon. But it's a constant juggle because I'll have trips to take and I'll have, other things that get in the way. But, I don't stress. It goes the way it goes, and I do my best to do my best, and that's it. I can't get stressed about it. If something is going wrong, I'll do my best to change it so that it gets better, and that's all I can do, really.
Thanks for sharing that, Carol. And look, I don't want to run out of time, so I just want to give you a couple of quick questions here. How, other than looking for a bigger studio because you need even bigger canvases to the enormous ones that you're painting at the moment, what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? How do you go about planning? Or does it not work like that in your world? Like, what's on your horizon or your roadmap?
I suppose that is I'm at the stage. It seems to happen every few years that I kind of outgrow the space that I'm in, and that studio issue is actually is something that I want to fix, because if you can imagine, if you have a lot of large scale canvases and you're trying to shift them around a room, they're all trying to dry at different times and stuff, and so yeah, in the next 6 to 12 months, I'd love a bigger space here locally, But apart from that, it's the paintings that I have in my head that I want to paint, really. That's it. There's nowhere else I want to be. That's it. A time I would love that they'd hurry up with cloning. If they could clone, if I could clone myself, I could be in both, maybe 3 places at once. But no, there's no ambition further than the work, really.
I love
Just
that.
the work.
It's such a great answer, Carol. Yeah. And I suppose related to some of the things that you were saying about shipping, and you mentioned a moment ago that you were the lady that came in and you were sitting doing a bit of admin in the gallery.
Yeah.
Um, it reminds me of the pandemic that we all went through. I'm sure galleries were shuttered the same as lots of public buildings, and of course you have to ship these beautiful works of art around the world now. How much does the website play in your world today? How much does international shipping play? Are you thinking about an international audience, even though you've got this local footfall? You've got, I'm sure, tourism playing into that as well as your, the awareness of your art around the world. But do you think about it from an e-commerce perspective or from a global shipping perspective, or is that just a means to get your art out to the people that want to buy it, who find you?
Well, it's a strange thing. So there's the because there's such big pieces, and because it's very difficult to make out scale of a piece when you're looking at it on the website. Whether the piece is 6 foot 4 or whether it's 5 by 2, people can't really see it. All of them look exactly the same. On the international side of things, if somebody was to, I'd really need to I don't think I've ever sold I'm trying to think if I ever did sell an original piece over the internet. And the reason is I've turned down people over the internet because it's so risky for both. It's, I don't want a situation, the way my screen is color calibrated is different to the way the person down the road is. And it's all about color. So how could I possibly sell a 10-foot painting to somebody based on possibly the wrong colors? It's just too difficult. So instead, it's quite incredible. If people have been in the gallery before, then it's okay, because then I know that they know what the paintings look like. They know the color of the painting. So if they go back home it happens so often. We were in your gallery 3 years ago and now we've moved house and now we'd like to have a painting. That's absolutely fine because I know they've been in the gallery, they've seen the work. And it's extraordinary, but that is the way the majority of the international work gets sold. And they're all over like they're in the Caribbean and Costa Rica and all over the States and in Switzerland and in Germany. And they're literally people who have just wandered in on a day into the gallery. And it's extraordinary that some are on their third painting. So it wasn't something that I was looking for. And I suppose if there's a lesson at all in sometimes people will struggle and they'll go to the place in order to make something happen. Like I went to the end of the earth where there was only 2 other people living to sit down with a pencil and a piece of paper. And it's really wasn't thinking about international sales or any sales. I really wasn't thinking about any of it. And it slowly just has evolved around me. Whatever that buzz is that's happening now is just kind of slowly evolved around that. So yeah, there are other ways of doing it, I think, is the way I put it.
Yeah, and you've said a couple of times as we've been talking, your real focus is getting back to the work and doing the best you can and constantly improving. And I suppose with the vastness of the oceans, your work will never end, Carol.
But that's it.
It's incredible. But thank you for sharing that, because that's real wonderful insight that how all a lot of your international sales, if not all of them, come from people that have seen them in person, and yet you're shipping all over the world. I know you are. That is incredible. And I suppose it's remindful where you might see something in a book or a picture or a movie or on TV, but there's something still magical about a human being standing in front of an actual canvas hanging on a wall. There is some magic in that, isn't there?
Yeah, totally. It's incredible. And recently we had the Dingle Animation Festival here, and young animators coming in and talking to me about the movement and being really into the work and really looking at it and studying it and asking me about how to get the movement into things, and they're saying that we're doing it in a few frames and you're doing it in one shot. And it's kind of like, wow, yeah, that's a really nice way of looking at it, because that's how I feel. It's moving as I'm painting it, But yeah, it's a great subject matter.
Well, look, I mean, long may it continue, Carol. And before we do wrap up, I do want to ask you, is there anything that maybe we haven't talked about, or some aspect that you'd like to maybe reshare with us as like a sort of final thought? And secondly, and importantly, if people want to connect with you and find out more about this wonderful art that you produce, where is the best place to send people to?
I'll answer the first one first. And there is something that I'd like to say, and it has to do with if you're a person that if you're ever walking by a gallery, and it doesn't matter if it's in the most, intimidating, wealthy neighborhood, and there's the gold bars on the window and saying, press the bell. If you see something inside that gallery that you want to go and look at and you're curious about, but you're intimidated by all of the barriers that are put up by a gallery, press the bell. Make that beautiful girl stand up and come over and open the door, and don't feel bad at all about looking at the work, because the artist who painted that, or the sculptor who made that piece of work, wants people to look at it. And there's a barrier that has grown up between the artist and the people, and that's the commercial gallery. And commercial galleries are fabulous. They're fantastic. And without them, we'd never get to see this amazing work. But all I'm saying is that, don't worry about ever going into a gallery to see something that you're curious about. Always do it. You will never regret it. Even if you walk in and you think, oh, it's not as nice as I thought, at least you'll know and you can walk back out again. But that's one thing, because I know it from talking to people who stand outside and terrified to come in, and I'm like, geez, man, you just come in. And they've told me this, that they have that intimidated kind of feeling. So that's that one. And if you ever want to see the work, I suppose the website is just carolcronin.com. The gallery is on Green Street in Dingle in County Kerry, the most beautiful place in the world. And I'm on Instagram, the Carol Cronin Gallery, and Facebook. So that's it.
Well, that's lovely. And it brings us nicely to the end of our conversation here today, Carol. I want to thank everybody who's been watching or listening to us talking today. Make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, do everything I need you to do to help support the global discussion. And of course, go and check out the wonderful world of Carol Cronin at carolcronin.com. And I hope that you'll join me back here for some more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers, just like Carol. But Carol, it's been lovely to talk to you again today. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Really enjoyed it, Simon. Thank you so much.